Well, cut down day is over. Waiver claims have been filed, and we are now officially in to week one of the NFL season. The NFL season kicks off 1 week from today. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. We're finally getting there, and the Bengals roster has been finalized. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about their latest signings or reported signings and so much more on this episode of the Ball Don't Lie podcast. Let's get started. Hi, hello, and welcome into the latest episode of the Ball Don't Lie podcast. My name is Austin Elmore. Thank you for being here. The Bengals have finalized their 53-man roster. Sort of. We're waiting on something to become official. More on that in just a little bit. But we're going to try to go position by position quickly here to try to figure out what exactly the vision is for the Bengals. Offense, it's pretty simple. Joe Burrow, Jake Browning, the two quarterbacks. Desmond Ridder was let go. He really did not do much in that final preseason game against the Colts. Peyton Thorne never got a fair chance. The Bengals stick with two quarterbacks. Nothing there is a surprise. Nor is the running back room. Chase Brown's the starter. Samaje Perine and Taj Brooks will back him up. Brooks will get some special teams opportunities. Perine will get some special teams opportunities. I expect those guys to be a little 50-50 in terms of who's going to be the running back to spell Chase Brown. Wide receiver, probably the most notable position that had been talked about, or probably the most popular position talked about nationally at least, because of the performance that Mitchell Tinsley put on against his former team, the Washington Commanders, on Monday Night Football. Well, Mitchell Tinsley has made the team, and this has been a strong group. Obviously, it's led by Chase and Higgins, but Andre Yosevich continues to progress. Charlie Jones had his best camp as a Bengal and is finally fully healthy. Jermaine Burton has been a little bit banged up, but he returned to practice on Wednesday in Cincinnati, and Mitchell Tinsley makes the team. Now, what's his role and how does he impact special teams and all that other stuff? We don't know that yet. But the Bengals keep 6 wide receivers, and Mitchell Tinsley is one of them. Congrats to him. The Bengals posted a video that features Mitchell Tinsley getting the news that he has made the team. Really, really cool. And a reminder that these guys are human. Let's move over to the tight end. Mike Gesicki is basically another wide receiver, so that's part of what made the Mitchell Tinsley move surprising. It's also surprising because Cam Grandy made this team. The Bengals end up keeping 5 tight ends. Now, I'm saying this on Wednesday night. You're hearing it probably on Thursday. There's a chance Cam Grandy is out with the expected signing of Dalton Risner. More on that in just a little bit. But the 6 tight ends, Gesicki, Fant, Sample, Hudson, and Grandy. So the way I look at it is Drew Sample and Cam Grandy are kind of the same player. The Bengals see them in the same vein. They're good blockers. They can do a little bit of everything. They have a spot on this team because of the niche ability to block and to move around in formations and just that sort of stuff. Not really much of a receiving threat. Meanwhile, Gesicki, as I mentioned, is basically a wide receiver. Fant is basically a wide receiver. And Tanner Hudson is kind of the guy that's between those two. He's a good mix of both. That's why he's on the team. That's a deep position that I don't think anybody expected to have that many players. And really a 7th if you count Eric All, who's on the injured reserve list due to that surgery he had earlier this year. Let's move to the offensive line. This is the one that raised a lot of eyebrows because they only kept 8. Most projections had the Bengals at 9 or 10 offensive linemen that they keep, but they only kept 8. Here's your starting offensive line as of now for week 1 at Cleveland. Left tackle, Orlando Brown Jr. Left guard, rookie Dylan Fairchild out of Georgia. Center, Ted Karras. Right guard, looks like it's going to be Lucas Patrick, the veteran that they signed in free agency out of New Orleans and Green Bay. And your right tackle is going to be Amarius Mims. Here are your backups. Your backup swing tackle, left, right, could play some guard as well. That's Cody Ford. Bengals fans are very familiar with him. Matt Lee makes the team as the backup center to Ted Karras. Not much of a surprise, but Lee did have a slow and rather unproductive camp because of an injury that hobbled him early on. So that was mildly surprising. Jalen Rivers, the rookie that they drafted out of Miami and Florida, he started as a tackle, transitioned to a guard. Don't know exactly what he's going to be now because the Bengals are expected to sign Dalton Risner. Risner was with the Minnesota Vikings last year, but Minnesota moved on from him in the offseason and reinvested in that position. Pro Football Focus graded Risner very, very complimentary as one of the best pass blocking guards in the National Football League. Now, he has some penalties every once in a while. Not common. He didn't have a bunch of penalties. He does allow some pressures and some hits, but not a lot. And he didn't allow a single sack in 2024. And that's all according to Pro Football Focus. He's the best true pass blocking guard that was available. The Bengals kind of looked at him and Lucas Patrick in free agency. They chose Lucas Patrick. Now they get Dalton Risner. Still waiting on the details for that deal, but the Bengals do look to have at least a budding competition at the right guard spot between Patrick and Risner. Risner has started 81 career games in the NFL with Denver and with Minnesota. I think this is a good signing by the Bengals. I don't expect him to come in and be a Hall of Famer, but I do expect him to raise the bar of competition. And ultimately, if Fairchild and Risner and Rivers and Ford, whatever combination of those four, can be better than Alex Kappa and Cordell Volson last year, ultimately, that's really all that matters. Let's switch over to the defensive side of the ball. The Trey Hendrickson deal is done. Trey has reported to camp. He's been reported to camp. He's actually practiced for the first time with the Bengals in full pads yesterday. And Trey is obviously the number one defensive end. Behind him, Shamar Stewart continues to flash, continues to say and do all the right things. Can he turn potential into production when the season starts? That's the biggest question. Behind him, Joseph Ossai and Myles Murphy. Murphy did return to practice for the Bengals on Tuesday, which is obviously good news. If he's good to go for the Cleveland Browns, the depth at that position could be really fun, especially in pass rush situations. Because of the ability of that group to move around to different spots, you can get all four of them on the field at the same time, which is critical to the success of this defense, especially getting after the passer. If you have Hendrickson, Stewart, Murphy, and Ossai, all four down linemen rushing the passer, I think I like my odds to at least impact the play in a negative way. That's a good thing. Some of the depth pieces there, Cam Sample, and he's really the only depth piece. So altogether, 5 defensive ends when you look at Ossai, Stewart, Sample, Hendrickson, and Murphy. Let's go to the defensive tackles. You've got B.J. Hill, Chris Jenkins, Howard Cross, and Eric Gregory. Eric Gregory could be one of those guys who gets cut when the Dalton Risner signing becomes official. We'll see how that goes. But Howard Cross made this team as an undrafted free agent out of Notre Dame, familiarity with Al Golden and his system. He had a very impressive camp, and the Bengals are high on Howard Cross. That's why he made the team. They're also high on Chris Jenkins, second-year defensive tackle out of Michigan. He suffered the thumb injury in training camp last year, kind of derailed his season. He started to show some flashes. He needs to be quicker and more physical off the line of scrimmage. He's got to pick up his speed off the line of scrimmage. Has to be better at that. But Al Golden said Chris Jenkins may have had the best top-to-bottom camp of any defensive lineman or any defensive player that the Bengals have. Let's switch over to nose tackle. The offseason acquisition, TJ Slayton, had a really good camp. And then McKinley Jackson, who is still certainly a work in progress, the draft pick from last year out of Texas A&M. Let's go over to the linebackers. Logan Wilson, Demetrius Knight, those are your starters. Backups are going to be Barrett Carter and Oren Burks. 3 of those guys, all new to this team. And Shaka Hayward makes the team as a depth piece and special teamer. It's going to be Knight, Carter, Burks, and Wilson. Wilson, obviously, the longtime vet. Demetrius Knight was a little bit banged up towards the end of the training camp season, the preseason, I should say. He's going to be good to go for Cleveland. When you look at the secondary, this is still a big concern, most notably with the secondary or with the safety position. Jordan Battle, Geno Stone, those are your starters. Your backups right now, Tyson Anderson and P.J. Jules. P.J. Jules is a great story. The way he fought his way onto an NFL roster, got a little bit of help from Geno Stone being banged up, a little bit of help from that Dejon Anthony being banged up. He goes on the injured reserve with a hamstring injury. They can designate him to return, and they will. But P.J. Jules, as of right now, makes the Bengals 53-man roster, as does Tyson Anderson, the elite special teamer, who is probably going to get some chances and take some snaps at safety. The cornerback room, Cam Taylor-Britt. It's a big year for him. Contract year coming up for Cam Taylor-Britt. Dax Hill, the Bengals have already picked up his option. They liked what they saw out of him in training camp. Josh Newton, the man they call Fig, really started hot in training camp, kind of quieted down and fizzled out after that. Haven't heard much from Fig. Hopefully that changes and he's able to provide some versatility to that room. Following up him, DJ Turner. Got to figure out if he's an NFL cornerback or not. Sometimes he looks like he is, and other times he looks like he's never played football before. And that's unfortunate. He's got to find a way to be more consistency. Rounding out that room, DJ Ivy and Marco Wilson, depth guys who still need some work. They'll play a lot on special teams. There was one big surprise, and it came on special teams. William Wagner. William Wagner beat out Cal Adamitis for the long snapper job. Cal Adamitis has been here for a couple of years out of Pitt. You might remember him from being college teammates with Damar Hamlin and going to visit Damar Hamlin in the hospital. After that situation, Cal Adamitis, no longer a Cincinnati Bengal. William Wagner beats him out. And Evan McPherson and Ryan Rico are your kicker and punter. So you have 25 on offense, 25 on defense. That equals out to 53 when you add the 3 special teamers. That math might actually be wrong. It might be, I think I just gave you 26 on offense, 25 on defense, 3 on special teams because I included Dalton Risner. We'll see what corresponding move happens. So what about the rest of the team? Well, the Bengals do have a practice squad filled out. Here's the players that are on the practice squad. Muma Jongmeta, Gary Brightwell, Andrew Coker, Isaiah Thomas, Kendall Milton, Joe Giles Harris, Jackson Kirkland, Devin Cochran, Isaiah Williams, Jordan Moore, Seth McLaughlin out of Ohio State, Braylon Lux, Jalen Davis. There were 2 external signings to the practice squad that happened on Wednesday. The first was Brett Rippon, a former quarterback and teammate of Dalton Risner's with the Denver Broncos. The Bengals did not like what they saw from Desmond Ridder. They did not like what they saw from Peyton Thorne. Brett Rippon will come in to be the break glass in case of emergency quarterback for the Bengals this year. They also signed a safety, Russ Yeast, the son of former Bengals wide receiver Craig Yeast. Interesting. Now, waivers today, the Bengals did not pick up any players on waivers. They apparently only filed a claim on one player, and that was a defensive lineman that they did not get because he was released by the Jacksonville Jaguars. The 49ers had a higher waiver priority claim than the Bengals, and so he went to San Francisco. There were 4 players that were claimed past the Bengals number at 17 in the claim list, the priority list. The Bengals obviously did not put claims in for those guys. I think the Titans had 4 players that they claimed off of waivers. Altogether, they obviously had the top priority. They get all those players if they want them. And so I was a little surprised that the Bengals didn't go after an offensive lineman, didn't go after a potential safety, but instead they stuck with this group. They still have 1 open spot on their practice squad. I would assume when the Dalton Risner signing becomes official, the Bengals will cut one of those guys, whether it be Cam Grandy or Eric Gregory or somebody like that. Hope that they clear waivers and stick them on the practice squad as well. I was on the air earlier today, and I was kind of talking about how I look at this group of offensive linemen, and I don't feel great about it. I just feel like overall they failed the offseason for the lack of depth, and at the time only 8, and just having doubts about their ability to protect Joe Burrow and to keep Joe Burrow upright. About an hour after that, it was announced or reported by Jordan Schultz that the Bengals were going to sign Dalton Risner, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. They deserve a lot of credit for looking around and knowing, okay, this group right now is not good enough. Let's try to improve it. Let's try to create some competition. Good on the Bengals for doing that. Also, good on the Bengals for doing this. They adjusted the Trey Hendrickson contract, as you know, and gave him a substantial raise in year number 1, or in this final year of his deal, but they also added a void year on the backside of that contract, which means his cap hit this year only goes up by $3 million, and it creates a franchise tag number that's lower next year. Yesterday I talked about how, or 2 days ago I talked about how that number would be between $37 and $39 million. Well, it may not seem like much, but with that void year added on, that number comes down to closer to $34-35 million. And it could change, again, based off of those other guys and the signings that they make, but it does make that a little bit easier of a contract for the Bengals to sign, or for a franchise tag for the Bengals to use if they choose to. And that obviously is a good thing for the Bengals if they choose to pull that lever like I talked about earlier this week. So now that we're at this point, how do we feel? How do you feel? I feel fine. I don't feel as good as I wanted to feel. I don't know what more they could have done to make me feel better. Maybe another safety. They have gotten better at the offensive line, especially with the Risner signing. They're pretty healthy right now. I mean, they're extremely healthy right now. The offense got reps in the preseason. I'm worried about the defense, but it, I've been fooled in preseasons in the past. But I think looking back on the totality of the offseason, if you would have told me the Monday after the Super Bowl that in this offseason the Bengals are going to sign extensions for Higgins and Chase and Gesicki, and that they're going to sign Noah Fant, and that they're going to draft an offensive lineman who wins a starting job in camp, and that they're going to sign 2 free agent offensive linemen who are capable of starting, and that they're going to come to an agreement with Trey Hendrickson, and that they're going to draft 2 other starters, or draft another starter on defense with Demetrius Knight, and that Jermaine Pratt would be gone. Like, if you would have told me all that stuff was going to happen, I would have signed up for that 1,000% without hesitation. And so now, looking back on it, it's hard to believe we're here because it felt like it took forever, and it felt like it was ugly, and it felt like it was a struggle, and it felt like we never were really going to get to where we wanted to go. But they did. They did everything they needed to do in this offseason. Hasn't been pretty, hasn't been easy. At times has been maddening to talk about the same stuff over and over again. But Burrow's here. He's healthy. Chase and Higgins are here. They're healthy. Mike Gesicki is here. The offensive line is better. The defense can be better. We don't know if it is yet, but you've got good young players. You've got an agreement with Trey Hendrickson that isn't out of the realm of possibility that he's here again next year. Shamar Stewart seems to be doing all the right things. Like, maybe, just maybe, this is a better offseason than we all anticipated. If you would have, again, told me the Monday before the Super Bowl, hey, here's all these things you got to do, what do you expect the Bengals to do? And I said it on this podcast. I don't expect Trey Hendrickson. I don't expect the deal to get done. Well, they proved me wrong. I wasn't sure that we should expect the T. Higgins deal to get done. Well, they proved me wrong. We've talked about all of it dating back to January when I restarted this podcast. So credit where credit's due for the Bengals. They slowly but surely keep making steps in the right direction in the way that they form contracts, the way that they structure contracts, I should say. They're not great still in the public eye and the PR realm. They're not great still in the community, but they continue to get stuff done. Oh, by the way, they got a stadium deal done with Hamilton County to stay in Cincinnati and downtown at the riverfront for the next 10, 11, 12 years at least. So that is commendable as well. They're committed to making improvements to their stadium. Like, in so many different ways, the Bengals have done everything we've asked them to do this offseason. And quite frankly, I didn't think they were going to get it all done. So kudos to them. Kudos to Katie and Troy and Mike and Caroline and Elizabeth and everybody in that organization to say, okay, here's a list of things. Duke Tobin, you too. Here's a list of things we've got to get done. We don't care how it happens. Just get it done. Well, they did. And so now, right now, I look at the way that the team performed in preseason, and I don't have a ton of confidence. I just don't. Offensively, I'm always going to feel good about Burrow, Chase, and Higgins, but defensively, I'm still very skeptical. But that being said, you have Joe Burrow, and you have everything else accomplished that you wanted to get accomplished this offseason. For that reason, the expectation should be that this team, this organization, is right back in the hunt for the AFC title. They're right back in the conversation to be in the playoffs, to be winning the AFC North, and to get back to the Super Bowl. That should be the expectation. You spend all this money, you do all this, you go through all this crap because you believe you are good enough and in a window to be able to win the Super Bowl. So now that has to be the expectation. And the pressure now shifts from the front office to get all that stuff done to the head coach. It shifts to Zach Taylor to get off to a hot start, to play better in the AFC North, and find your way back to the playoffs, and most importantly, win a playoff game. So, Duke Tobin, Mike Brown, Katie, Troy, they're all sitting back saying, all right, big boy, our job's done. Now it shifts to you. And I hope Zach Taylor is ready for that. If you liked what you heard, you can hear me weekdays, noon to 3 on ESPN 1530. I co-host Cincy 360 with Tony Pike. Can also be heard on 700 WLW, oftentimes on the weekends, and late night after Bengals primetime games. You can follow me anywhere and everywhere on social media at Auty Elmore, AUTYELM, O-R-E. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ball Don't Lie podcast. We'll talk to you again next week as we prepare for the Cleveland Browns. Thanks so much. And as always, have fun. Be safe. Go Bucks.